So I took the course in November, I believe, last year. My first paid client would be March or April. Wow, I was so happy.
Do you have like a revenue goal number where you're like, I want to make this much per month?
Oh wow, as big as possible. I think revenue goal per month.
Do you mind telling me like where are you at revenue wise now? Well, we're here with Zoe, and Zoe is a student of our Brilliant Bookkeeper program, and I would argue the most, if not one of the most active members in our community. Kind of like you're always in there, which is awesome. And I've always told people like any of our programs, whoever comes in and is the most active or is just always showing up and asking questions, they're the people that start to get clients and have success, which is where you are in your Brilliant Bookkeeper journey right now. You've gotten your first couple of clients, you've made money doing this, which is always like, that's the goal. And actually, I don't know if I've told anybody this, like one of the big goals here for us at Stellar Brands, which I also don't know if you know that we've rebranded to Stellar Brands, but we really are trying to measure our success by how much revenue our students bring in, which I think is like the North Star for us. Like that is the thing that we really want to hold our employees accountable for, and myself and everybody that's involved with the brand. So it's amazing that you've taken that step and you've joined Brilliant Bookkeeper and all that. We're going to talk about all of that later. But you mentioned to me before we started recording that you, I think you said you taught yourself personal finance, which I was really interested in because I started as a personal finance blogger. So can you tell me a little bit about that? Like, how did you get into the personal finance world?
Well, thank you, Bobby, for having me here. I'm so excited to share my experiences. Yes, I started teaching myself after college graduation. I was very fortunate to have family who knew finances, and they instilled that into me. So they taught me about like taxes, pre-tax is the way to go. Like MetroCard, commuter card benefits is the way to go. I did not fully understand why that is, but they're my parents. I trust them. But after that, I started to do the math, realize the math shows it, and that's how I started. And then I got into stock investments. So it's the support of my family who invest in stocks too as well. The basics will set me on the right path.
That's awesome. So did you ever get into like any personal finance, I don't know, like TikTokers or bloggers or anything like that? Like, was it like your family got you into it? They kind of taught you. Did you ever like, I don't know, start following anyone in the personal finance community or start looking at anything on social media? Can you tell me about that?
Yeah. So at first, when I first started, that was about 10 years ago. I was not active on social media at all. I used books mostly.
Okay, cool.
And Google was my best friend. But actually, since the pandemic, I use a lot more social media. There's a couple I find their advice are very, very top notch. And then I use that to help me to do some more digging to help me understand, is this the best approach for me?
Yeah. What is when you said you got into personal finance books, like what was your favorite personal finance book?
I think for the stock market, it would be The Market Hustle.
Okay.
And then for personal finances, for general finance, it would be Your Rich BFF.
Okay.
Those two are my top go-to people. And there's some others, but those two are the ones I rely on, that I trust them, that they provide accurate.
Yeah. I can't remember. I feel like I saw this in the community. Did you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
Oh, yes, I did. That's one of the books that just turned on the light bulb. I read that. Well, I was starting this program actually.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So it's pretty recent.
Yeah.
That's actually, I want to say that's the first personal finance book that I ever read. And like, there was just something about that book because like, I didn't really, I mean, my parents talked to me about money a little bit when I was younger, but like, it wasn't something we talked about all the time. And so I didn't really have like a really strong personal finance foundation or anything like that. And I read that book and it really did change my mindset around money in a lot of ways. Just how people that struggle with money, how they look at money versus people that have money. Do you remember, like, what was one of the big takeaways that you had from Rich Dad Poor Dad?
My biggest takeaway would be the concept of, like you said, how people use money, invest money, compare those to people who save money. But the really biggest takeaway was the comparison of rich versus poor dad. And I realized it was the missing piece and I could totally relate to, what's the other name? Mike, I think.
Yeah.
Like my family is the poor dad version. And I was able to make connections. So I want the rich dad side, but my family does not fully understand that concept. But now I do understand where my family is coming from. And that's allowed me to break free from that and be more confident in seeking my own financial freedom.
Yeah. How have you seen that kind of, you read the book and you felt like you broke free from that kind of mindset. What actions did it make you take?
I think it's made me feel more confident in myself. So it's more about mental confidence. So when, sometimes I'll hear people say, "Oh no, that's not how you do it. That's not the right way." But when the author Rich Dad Poor Dad spoke about it, and it just made me feel, you know what? It's talking about their experience. That is the poor dad mindset.
Yeah.
But the rich dad mindset it's very different. Just confident yourself, push through it. You're going to find your freedom. It'll take time. I found the book to be more empowering than the actual advice of how to get into that mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to go back a little bit because we talked about your backstory a little bit, and there was something that I've always heard people, I know people that have done this, but you said that you've done it, and I thought it was really fascinating and really impressive. So you said you double majored in college?
Yes, in history and government.
History and government. Okay. So as a person that did not double major in anything and was not particularly great at school, how did you do that? Like, what does that look like when you're actually double majoring in something? Because I can't even really imagine what that looks like.
I ask myself the same question too once in a while. So in high school, I loved history. It was my favorite subject. You can have one event and have different narratives around it depending on your perspective.
Yeah.
And that carried into college. And I was able to dive deeper into certain history periods. And I was like, yeah, I'm continuing. This is my passion at the time. And I still love history. And as for government, I took Gov 101 because now I'm a United States citizen. Now as a citizen, I should be aware at least the basics of how government should work. I took that class. It was similar to history, but very focused on American politics. And I loved it. And I decided to double major. It's a lot of reading, a lot of writing. But you know what? When you're young, you do it because you love it.
So you just made it work.
Yeah.
I'm curious because you focused on American government. Obviously, at the time of recording, we are very close to a presidential election. Do presidential elections, like, does this stuff stress you out, or is it just like fascinating to you because you know more about it, or like kind of you have a better kind of framework for how all the stuff plays out in history?
It's fascinating because I think about this every day. So it fascinates me, and yet it also stresses me out too. Because I can see what I learned in class applies to this. What I learned from history also applies to what's going on these days. And so this makes me so fascinated. But at the same time, it's horrifying, the rhetoric out there. I don't agree with it. And it's not what's going on in politics. I mean, some may disagree with me. That's okay, respectfully.
That's fine.
But it's what's going on. We're at very pivotal time in history that anything can go either way. And when politics very unstable, it's that's stressful for anyone involved, like who's watching it.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready for it to be over. 'Cause
Me too.
It
I'm
stresses
just
me out.
waiting.
It stresses me out, mostly because of the way that I don't. Maybe it's the way I consume content now, just with social media, and it's so hard to know like what's true and what's not true, and it's just a very very interesting time. But I'm sure for you, as somebody that can kind of look back at the things that you've learned in college and your background, like it's probably you can kind of, I don't know, find other times in history where it's been like this. But what part of history, going back to the history side, like what part did you focus on?
I loved World War II era.
Oh,
As
me too.
depressing as that is, I
I
found it to be most fascinating in terms of the psychology of the people, of the mindset.
mhm,
They're coming from the Great Depression. They're pretty desperate to find money. I mean, that's understandable when
mhm,
people provide, solution, a promise of, and then also during that time, people are at their worst. They'll find excuse to shift the blame onto other people. And it's just, I don't agree with that, but it's psychology. And when people tap into that to gain power, it is a very scary, it happens throughout history, happened during,
yeah.
9/11, just give people what they want to do, like war, the fear of the Middle East. So we go up there, run rally, it's for oil. So those things are just horrifying. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if this is good or bad, but my guilty pleasure is like World War II documentaries and books. Like that is the only thing. And I've heard a lot of jokes about like, as you grow up, there's a lot of jokes about like men. And if you either grow up and you like, you get into barbecue or you get into World War II. And I've definitely gone the World War II route. Um, and it's just, but the whole thing's fascinating to me. And there's so many stories and there's so much there that was happening at this like very pivotal moment in history that it's like, there's not enough content on it. It's
Never.
unbelievable. So yeah, I'm actually in the middle of a World War II documentary. I love when they colorize the old footage and then they do like the colorized World War II documentaries. Like those are my favorite thing to watch ever. I could just watch them forever. But yeah, I'm curious, for you, like having this background and having, in history and in government, and then you went to work in government. Um, what like what do you do in government right now, and how has that been going for you?
Oh, great. So what I do right now, I work in IT for after school and community service programs. And I work in IT to help, think of me as the translator to collect requirements from the users and translate those requirements for the software developers to understand. So I make sure that if there are miscommunications, you got to get them resolved. I write the requirements in a clear way to help, because we have miscommunication. It's going to still cause a delay in the delivery of our project. So, and I work specifically on data, so that way we can support our programs to meet their contractual goals, and also report out to external agencies because, like everyone, we need money.
Yeah. So have you? I mean, from an outsider perspective, when I hear about people working in government, I it doesn't sound fun to me. Like there's just something about it. I don't even know what it is. I think it's just me stereotyping almost in a way of like that the government would not be fun to work for. But have you enjoyed that career path so far? Has it been enjoyable, or has it been something where you've done it and you're like, okay, I'm ready to do something else?
Well, I think if someone wants to work in the government, they have to be very passionate about helping the
Mm,
people that the agency serves. So for me to work in my agency, I'd be passionate to help low income communities to gain the programs and services so that they can grow and thrive, whether that's after school program or getting hired in a workforce program or again learning how to read, because that's a very important skill most people don't have. Well, not most of people serve cannot read at a fifth grade level. So that is something to try work to help our communities. And you always have to be passionate about it because there are some downsides working for government, but if you're passionate about it, you love it, you believe what you're doing, and that can overcome the downsides.
What are the downsides?
Low salary. It may not be, if you compare, I mean, the similar can be said about nonprofits too. So it may not, if you compare the salary to a private sector, for example,
Yeah.
you could probably make more money in the private sector. Depending on which kind of position you are, if you're in a front field, what kind of field, you may have to work longer hours or deal with people directly. And that for some might be mentally draining. For others, they love it. So it depends, who you are, what's your personality, what fits your lifestyle.
Yeah. And are you, if I remember correctly, you're in New York?
Yep, New York City.
New York City. Okay. So given what you said, where it's like, hey, sometimes the salaries aren't great, like, has it been difficult? I mean, all I know about New York City is that it's extremely expensive to live there. So like, has that been difficult? Like, how have you made that work? Working for the government this entire time?
So I've been fortunate to have support of my parents. I was able to live in one of the places they own. I pay the maintenance and all. Mm-hmm. So I've been fortunate now. I live with my partner and the salary is reasonable. We have to be able to budget. You can't live a lavish lifestyle. You live, comfortably. We're able to save money to go on to vacations or trips for some experiences, like go out to restaurants. But if you're to do that every day, that's not going to work in our budget. So it's some sacrifices you have to make.
Yeah, and you're surrounded by like some of the best restaurants.
That's hard. I'm a foodie. I love going to restaurants and cafes. Well, what's this? Let's taste this crepe and compare the other crepe.
Yeah. Yeah, that's got to be tough. So it's funny. I also, coming out of college, I had lived with my in-laws, and my wife and I rented a 10 by 10 bedroom for them for the first couple of years, and it was like, I actually really enjoyed it, and I'm really glad that we did it because I feel like we got to be a lot closer with her parents, and my wife's husband. My wife's father unfortunately passed away kind of early, but we were able to spend a lot of time with them during that period of time. Did you have a good experience living with your parents, or was it like the kind of standard, not so much fun experience?
Oh, it's a hit and miss. Depends on what. I mean, yes, it's great. Oh, I'm hungry. What are they cooking for dinner? Maybe I'll just join them. I mean, yes. Then sometimes, my parents work it out so we have boundaries so that and have each other some space so we're not always on top of each other.
Yeah. I think that was the biggest thing because we lived in probably not New York size small. Was this in New York when you lived with them?
Yep, New York. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So we lived in a pretty small house for this area, which was like 1,600 square feet, which I'm guessing is big by New York standards, if I had to guess, or pretty like a decent size. I'm trying
to do the math. 1,600. Oh, it depends how many bedrooms there are. Well, that's a big question.
Yeah, there was 3 in the house. One of them was an office though. So we lived literally in the room that my wife grew up in, like a little 10 by 10 bedroom. And that was it. Okay. Oh, that's small. Okay, yeah. Our bedrooms, we have a 3-bedroom now, and our bedrooms are about 10 by 10 too. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So about the same. Yeah. It's just interesting, but I enjoyed the experience though. And I'm glad that we did that. And obviously it was a huge help for us financially as we got kind of started in our life. And it is. I think it's great. Yeah. It is a big hack. If you can, some people may not be able to have that ability to do it with their families for whatever reason. But if people can, that is a great money saving hack. Oh, 100%. I think that it's good just to family's so important to me. It's like one of the big things for me. And I think the more time, we only get so much time here. So the more time you can spend with family, I think the better. And I always have told people that, like, if you have the opportunity to live at home and you can rent a room from them or contribute financially to them in some way and still live there, I think it's typically it can be a win-win for everybody, assuming everybody gets along. I think that's kind of the thing.
That's important.
Yeah, that's the hard part. Because some people, when we were living with our in-laws, they were like, I could never do that. Like I could never live with my in-laws. But it was a huge help for us. So it was always a really, I don't know. I look back on that time with really fondly look back on that time. But so take me from, you're living in New York City, you're surrounded by the best restaurants in the world, and your pay probably isn't as high as you want it to be. So I'm guessing that's why you kind of went down the path of looking for something else to do. I mean, you told me before we started recording that you kind of taught yourself bookkeeping, which I thought was very fascinating. So what made you decide, like, I'm going to go out there and start some kind of business on my own?
Yeah, you're right. The pay isn't. I mean, I make great money.
Yeah.
But compared to private sector, I could be looking a little bit more. But it's not just the pay. Well, it was at first. Well, pay was one of the two reasons at first.
Yeah.
One is the pay. Second, during the pandemic, we all worked remotely full time. And I realized I actually enjoyed that lifestyle to work from home or from anywhere. And then we had to go back to the office part-time or full-time. Because I don't remember the order of events, but we went back to the office. And I was like, how did I have all the energy to go back in the office? And then I broke my foot and worked from home full time. And then I just started realizing I have maybe working full time in the office or hybrid is not my lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's not what I want to do. I love the freedom to go to work in a cafe, or freedom to work on my terrace, or the freedom to maybe if there's a wedding we're going to go, but what if I just take a whole week in the area and just work from there? That flexibility is what I was thinking about. And now it's become more about working with people who I love to work with, maybe spend more time networking and work on my freedom lifestyle.
Yeah.
Becomes more important than the money itself.
Right. Yeah. So a little bit money, but mostly freedom is kind of what I'm hearing there. Freedom, lifestyle freedom, which, I mean, honestly, that's a big reason that I jumped into what I'm doing now. Like I was a teacher and I really hated being told what to do. Like there's just something about, I think I was just always born to like work for myself, because I was an awful employee. Mostly because I just always thought there was like everything we were doing I thought was dumb, and it really wasn't. I was just very young and opinionated at the time. But I do think that the freedom part is, and that's one of the biggest reasons people come to what we do at Stellar Brands and look for these side hustles and things to do in general. So what was it about bookkeeping specifically that was really appealing to you?
It's the freedom. And I think when I saw your website, there was there was a section. Maybe it's not your website, but it was something about Kristen, who travels a lot and she can work from anywhere. And I'm like, and that really connected with me. And that's like, okay, that's how I grew into Stellar Brands.
Yeah. And for people that are listening, Kristen Metter is our Brilliant Bookkeeper instructor. She owns an accounting firm called Gradient Accounting. And she partnered with us to do the Brilliant Bookkeeper program, I guess almost 2 years ago now. But she lives the coolest lifestyle. Like she's so great. Like she's one of my favorite people, but she lives this lifestyle where she used to work at a Big Four accounting firm, hated it. One of the same things you're talking about, Zoe, like wanted to have more freedom. And so she started her own firm, and now I think she travels half of the year. I mean, she's like always in some really cool country. Her and her husband will like just rent someplace in some other country and stay there for a very long time. And it's just been great. And I think that that's one of the cool things about these online businesses, that you really can work from anywhere. I mean, you know, a lot of people are concerned about like the time constraints and like, are you going to be able to talk to clients and how is that going to work? But really, if you kind of give them a heads up ahead of time, like, hey, I'm 8 hours ahead of you in this other country right now, I'll be here at this time, like you can make all that stuff work. And Kristen runs a really successful accounting firm doing that. So the travel, was it specifically the travel part that really kind of made you want to jump into Brilliant Bookkeeper, or just do bookkeeping in general, or was it like just the general freedom?
It's a general freedom, and I love to travel.
Okay, cool.
And seeing that Kristen does it too, and just like, hey, I want, like, that's a great person to connect with and to learn from, not just bookkeeping expertise, but seeing that she done it, that means, hey, I can do it too, and anyone
Absolutely.
else too.
Yeah, and you're doing it, which is really
Yes.
cool. I think that's one of the best things about your story is just like you are actually doing it.
Thank you.
And, I think, so tell me about, so you self-taught yourself bookkeeping a little bit before and just kind of like self-education, that kind of thing. And then you got into Brilliant Bookkeeper. Like what was the difference? Like, did you feel like there was like a gap in knowledge that you had, or like, did you just learn more of what you already knew? Can you kind of talk me through that?
So when I self-taught bookkeeping, I used Excel spreadsheets, and I created my own local database for my Facebook cards to track of what card I have and how much I bought and sold it for. And that was it. But I didn't have any fundamentals, accounting basics. Throughout my job for different positions for New York City government, I've done reconciliation for grants, I've done coaching, budgeting advice for providers, but nothing is the same as actually bookkeeping on actual accounting software platform. And I'm sure I could, learn it, but it's not the same. And I took what you call free online courses, like what you call EDX and Coursera.
Yeah.
Those are very technicals, but that's not what I really needed. I just wanted some kind of a holistic, get me up to date what the current accounting world is.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's one of the biggest, that's one of the things that some people, when they come to us and they want to jump into a program, they're like, can't I learn all of this stuff for free? And the answer is yes, but
Yes.
it's also way harder. Like, it's so much more difficult.
It takes so much more time.
Yeah, it takes a lot more time. And I think, one of the great things about bringing someone in like Kristen, she does this work every day. And I think, and Kristen's incredibly talented and smart, and she's so good at like updating new things that are happening in the marketplace. And she sees this work with clients. And so I've always, that's what I always tell people is like, look, if you want to, you can try to go learn it on your own, and that's totally fine. Like it's cheaper that way, to be honest with you. But taking a program like Brilliant Bookkeeper or any of the ones we have, it's just a shortcut. That's really what it comes down to. It's a shortcut, and then you get the coaching along with it, which I think is really what people need. Because like you can take a course, but then it's like once you get out there and you start talking to potential clients, it's like, what do I say to them? How do I even talk to them? Where do I find them? So tell me about your story, like getting into Brilliant Bookkeeper and then, getting your first client. Like what was the time span on that? Like how long did it take, and what was that process like?
Yeah. So I took the course in November, I believe, last year. And my first client was a dance company. And at the time, it was that. Maybe it was just before, but whatever. It was my first client. And I was trying to figure out, how to do this. And I don't want to mess anything up, but she is a friend of my partner. And I was like, hey, well, my partner asked, just if she need a bookkeeper. Says yes. I don't know if I can pay her. And I'm like, I'll do it. This is the first client ever. I just want to get some experience. I'm going to probably make some mistakes, but you know what? It's learning experience, and it worked well for both of us. Was able to provide a testimonial in return, a reference whenever I need it. And that was a great lucky turnaround right off the bat. And then my first paid client would be March or April. So I think 3 months later.
Okay.
Maybe 4. and that was through a referral from an old friend from college. So that was successful. And I started to pick up another one in the summer, June or July. And last week I got 2 new clients, and I have
Last week?
another. Yeah, it's coming
awesome.
out. It's a long journey, but
Yeah.
you put in the work. You don't stop. If it gets hard, there are times I'm like, oh God, why am I doing this? This is so hard. But then I remember why I'm doing this for my freedom, and
That's amazing. I
it
didn't
comes like,
know that. That was
yeah.
not in the show notes before I got on with you. So that's really cool. That's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What's so cool about it, and I know it's hard for people when they first start something like this because I mean, like, how intimidating was it for you to like go out and get the first client? Like, were you terrified?
Um, it was pretty scary because I never had to market
Mm-hmm.
or do sales at all. When I think about my job history, it's always been at the same agency, and I I said no, I'm interested in doing this, looking for something new, and okay, interview. Let's there's a position open if you're interested, or whatever the conversation went, and I'm fortunate to have the position. So it's like, so I always thought, to me, from my perspective, they see the work I do. I did not have to sell myself or
Yeah.
give them the value. They just saw it in me. But now I have to learn how to market, how to promote myself, and it's felt very weird because I never had to do that. So I mean, I understand it's all natural part of business, but it's a huge learning experience for me.
It is the biggest gap, and that's why I always tell people like just stay active in the community because it's a lot easier when you have like a group of people around you that are kind of cheering you on. If you're just doing it on your own, it's really terrifying.
Agreed.
But have you? I mean, have you found it to be well? Obviously, because you're getting clients now. Has it been easier for you to sell yourself and kind of talk confidently about those things as you're talking to potential clients?
Yes, it's gotten easier now, more natural. I practice role play calls with different
Yeah,
people, get their perspective. It's working the practice and just having a support system from your group and other bookkeepers to as well give me their perspective on how they operate, and that's been really crucial. Support multiple support system, and that was a huge big difference. Having a group to fall back for advice or just some kind of moral support, get your hopes back up.
yeah, yeah. What did it feel like when you got the first dollars in the bank account from your first client?
Wow, I was so happy. I was like, I did it.
Yeah, that's
It's
awesome.
happening. But wait, it's real now. I have to work.
Yeah, you're like now I got to do the thing.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. I remember when I got the first check. I actually got like a physical written check from my
Oh,
first
wow.
digital marketing client back in the day, and it was like I'll just never forget. I was just like, oh, you could just make money. Like it's just like there's this like endless possibility. I feel like that kind of opens up where you realize like, whoa, I can actually go out here and build something and do what I want to do. Do you mind telling me like where are you at revenue wise now? I mean, now that you're bringing on these 2 clients, like where is that going to put you?
So it's varies. So I offer various services from projects through quarterly to monthly services. So at minimum, it'll be $300. And then quarterly it'll add up per month. So I could make as much as $1,000 a month. So it varies.
Yeah. Are you talking about per client or like for all the work?
Total.
Total. Yeah. And I feel like that's a really big, like when people get to that $1,000 milestone, like that's a really big one because like $300, $500, that feels great. But once you start getting to 1,000, then it's much easier to get to 2,000. And then 5,000 is kind of that next one, and then 10,000. So what are your goals? Like now that you're starting to land clients and you're starting to make it happen, like where do you want to take this?
I would love to grow, get more clients, be able to and add on additional services. And that will take time because I'm going to quit my full-time job soon by the end of this year. And then so I can focus more on bookkeeping. And I'm also going back to school. I'm going to be forever in school. So I'm going back to school to get courses so I can become a CPA because I have a vision. What I realized because I serve various clients from nonprofits to small businesses, that taxes is a very big need, but also auditing for especially for nonprofits, a big need too as well. And I'm thinking, well, if I can have a one-stop shop for all of their needs, but I would I would have to be a CPA to offer auditing, especially so,
Right.
and also for taxes too as well. But that was my long-term goal. I'm very excited to go down on that path.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're very quickly going towards that path, which is awesome. And yeah, being a CPA and like, especially if you're a CPA and you can do bookkeeping, I feel like that's a superpower
Yeah.
because I don't think a lot of people realize that some CPAs like can't do bookkeeping or are
Yeah,
not interested in doing it.
it's so fascinating because CPA, the exam itself is just a broad topic. It covers so much, but to get down to very specific, to go deep, very deep, that requires additional knowledge. And at least for me, my brain can only hold so much. So be specialized in an area or two will be very beneficial for clients.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have, so let's say, let's look forward, you get there, you become a CPA, you have your bookkeeping clients. Do you have like a revenue goal number where you're like, I want to make this much per month?
Oh wow, as big as possible, reasonably as possible. I think revenue goal per month would be I want to because I work from home from anywhere. Clients can work from anywhere, so I want to serve across the United States. So revenue goal for now, like my first step, will be 10K per month.
Yeah.
After that, I would love to serve more towards 25K, and that's when I probably will step back to let my team to help me to deliver services for the clients while I look into other ventures. So I would love to create a community to support people to leave their full-time job and to start a business venture or I'm thinking I'm going to start a podcast soon on helping Americans who face financial hardships and how they overcame them. Now, I mean specifically business owners, and I think that will be a very empowering story here that because of their race, gender, ethnicity, or sexual orientation, that'll be very empowering for others to say, yes, the systemic issues in the United States is not the best, but we can't control that. So how can we control what we can do? And that's and just hear other people's stories. I hope it will inspire them that they can do it. And it's go back to what we said, Bob. The mindset, you gotta keep going, keep pushing forward, and one day you will get there. But you have to put in the work.
Yeah, that's amazing. Very well said too. And I think what's cool about what you're doing is that you help people now in your day job. And then as like your goal as an entrepreneur is to help more people. And I've always found that to be, I think a lot of people just think about entrepreneurship and they're like, oh, I want to get rich, and this like, it's just about the money. And that hasn't been my experience at all. It's really been more about helping people. And I feel like if that's your North Star, then the money will come.
It does.
Especially like when you're solving people's problems and you're helping them. And especially in the way that you're talking about, like helping people that, maybe have a harder time or just haven't figured things out yet for whatever reason. And you're helping them get to that next level. Like you're going to make a bunch of money because of that, because you're putting a lot of value out into the world. And so I think that's amazing. I didn't know that was your goal. So that's really cool.
Thank you.
And I think you can absolutely get to 25,000 or beyond. And I love that you're talking about building a team. So like you're already like, you're probably not, I don't know if you're at the point right now. Well, no, you said you're hiring a social media manager, right?
I'm sorry, what?
Are you? I think I saw in the pre-show notes like that you were hiring somebody to help with social media. So like,
Oh yes, I did, and she's been so instrumental with my Instagram. I got 2 leads from there, and she made a meme, and QuickBooks loved the meme, and they commented, and it was
that's awesome.
amazing what she did there. But unfortunately, I had to let her go because now I'm going to quit my full-time job and going back to school. It's not in the budget, but I would definitely love to have her back on
Yeah.
when we have more money coming in from bookkeeping.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll rehire, and that's I mean, that's the tough part about like
It's
early
hard.
entrepreneurship is like, I mean, I've been in that exact same position where very early on, like I would hire people, and then it was like, oh, I can't afford to hire people anymore.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
because in the early days, it's so up and down sometimes. But I think the cool thing about entrepreneurship is just like if you don't stop and you just keep going, then eventually everything starts to even out. You get more comfortable with client acquisition, your revenue steadies out, and it takes time. But once you do that, then you can hire people and keep them on and all that. Like I'd never thought I would have full-time employees or anything like that. And it's just it just progressed because I didn't quit. And it sounds like you're going to do the exact same thing, which is amazing. I guess the last question, and you've done great so far, by the way, like for not ever doing a podcast before. Like you've done great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's
yeah,
like you say, it's just a conversation,
Yeah. Yeah. I try to make it comfortable for people. I know it's intimidating when you've never done a podcast, but what was your, going through the Brilliant Bookkeeper program and all that stuff, what was your favorite thing about the program?
Oh, wow. I'm going to say 2 things I can think of right now that jumps off my head right now. One is the course materials that you have created. At first, it seemed overwhelming because there's so many modules and content. But the way it's broken up was really digestible. It's very easy. Take a break in between. And the way that Kristen, teaches, how she communicates complex topics into very simple, like I'm ready to explain, like I'm 5. It was that kind of thing, and that was amazing. And second, that leads to second part in the community itself, the chat,
Yeah.
where we can post comments, pick posts and comment. That was great. I love to hear Kristen's thoughts, her expertise, and also from other community members, jump in. And I have a question, see what other bookkeepers do, their perspective. They all have different backgrounds. They all have different experience. We work in different niche, or we don't have a niche, but the clients we work are all different, and having the experiences combined is just so valuable for me to see which would work best for me.
Awesome. Well, I'm so happy for you. Congratulations again on landing the clients.
Oh, thank you.
And I can't wait to see where you go. You're just one of those people I know you're going to make it. Like,
oh, thank you. You said it early on. I remember the post you said.
Yeah.
I would make it because I'm active.
Yeah. I've been doing it long enough now. Yeah. I've been doing this for a decade now. And when I see somebody like you come along, it's like, you just know right away, like, okay, yeah, they're definitely going to make it. And, obviously you've made it in the sense that like now you're making money. I think you're going to make it to like the next level and beyond. So I'm so happy for you. Can you tell everybody where they can find you and if what your services are, so people can, if somebody's interested, they're listening to the podcast and they want to hire you, can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I offer a variety of services from projects that could be helping you create customized reports, through accounting setup, payroll setup, through monthly, quarterly. If you're small, I can help you with quarterly bookkeeping. I can go up all the way up to the end service where it's monthly bookkeeping with invoice management and payroll management as well. And they can find me on LinkedIn. It's Zoe Gershony, or Instagram at Fenrise. My website is www.fenrise.ac, and feel free to drop a comment or message me on LinkedIn or Instagram, and I just love to connect you.
Awesome. Well, if you're listening, hire Zoe. Zoe's the best.
Thank you, Bob. You're the best too.
Thank you. So yeah, that's all I had today. So again, if you're listening to this, go check out her website, or go check out the website. Go check out LinkedIn, all of that. And Zoe, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Bob, for having me here. We'll see you soon.